Beautiful. And so there we go. So yeah, thanks y'all for joining. I'm going to start us off with some updates from like the CSTA Arizona side. I'm going to share my screen. And so I'm going to share this in the context of this sort of email that we just sent out. But hopefully this is sort of familiar for lots of folks on this call. CSTA Arizona is in the middle of sort of two big initiatives that are kind of happening, which is super exciting. The first thing is that we're holding elections. And so right now there are several board members on this call. I am the president, Jesse is our K-8 director, Jared's our treasurer, and we're holding elections. Every board position is open for election this year. It's not always like that, but COVID kind of threw off our election cycle, and basically everyone's term is up now. And so there's the opportunity to either nominate yourself, or recommend someone else, and then that person can then apply to be on the board. There's lots of information here about why you might want to run for a board position, what some of the responsibilities are. One of the things that I'll highlight here, though, is that CSTA Arizona is primarily a teacher-first organization. We encourage all of our director positions to be teachers in classrooms or to have classroom experience, but you do not necessarily need to be a current or former classroom teacher to run for the board. And I will especially highlight that in the growth of CSTA Arizona, one of the ways that we're rapidly growing is in nonprofit applications, things that we're doing as a nonprofit organization. And that is a unique skill set that folks who may not necessarily have classroom experience might have and might be able to bring to the board. So if there are folks interested in this intersection of nonprofit organizations, as well as computer science and education, they might be someone who could be a good fit for running for our board and helping us to continue to grow in this area of managing grants, getting involved in more systemic applications of spreading computer science in Arizona, ways that we can really be a leader with our nonprofit status in Arizona. So that was something I especially wanted to highlight for this group. This is on our website. We have sort of an elections page that has more information, including sort of more detailed description of each board position. This is the first sort of major thing that's running throughout September. Applications close in September. And the other major thing that we have going on is we now have like a vibrant series of events happening throughout Phoenix, throughout Tucson, and through these virtual community calls for folks to be involved. And it seems to be working. We have lots of people on this call right now, which is we are super excited about and super grateful for. If you are in Tucson, our next meetup is next Wednesday, September 14th, in collaboration with the U of A Computer Science Department. And there's a spot to RSVP. I'm realizing I'll share all of this information in the chat as well. And then if you're in Phoenix, Jesse, who is on this call right now, is hosting the Phoenix Teacher Meetup. It's being hosted at the Arizona Science Center. Thank you, Beth, for hosting our meetups. And that is something that we would appreciate if you know teachers teaching computer science, if you can help spread the word for them to find community with our members, or if they want to run for board positions. Those are some things happening with CSTA Arizona. I'll stop sharing my screen and open the floor for questions or comments or conversations around any of those CSTA Arizona pieces. Cool. That's great. That's wonderful. All right, well then I am going to pass the mic. Up next, we have Emmanuel from Bootstrap. As a little bit of an introduction, Bootstrap came out this past summer and ran a dynamic, amazing session with about 25 teachers from the U of A Data Science Academy, a mix of not just computer science teachers, but also science teachers, math teachers, general education teachers, middle school teachers, on ways to integrate data science authentically into their classroom. We're excited to bring Emmanuel here as well to talk about the broader picture of data science. Hopefully that accurately describes what's going to happen. Emmanuel, if you want to jump in.
Sure thing. Well, hey, everybody, it's really awesome to be here with all of you. Thanks for welcoming me. I'm coming at you from the state of Virginia. So it's, I just put my daughter to bed. She's literally on the other side of this monitor wall. I can hear that she's awake, so hopefully she stays in bed. So, you know, I know some people it's really helpful to be able to sort of see and read slides while someone is talking. So I do have a little presentation, but I don't need the slides. And if there are folks that are here that are like, we are sick of looking at slides, like teachers look at slides way too much, I can also just like talk. So let me know, like, would anybody prefer to just have something to look at the same time? All right, I'm seeing a couple of folks. Yes, you got it. Okay. And for those of you that don't want to look at anything, you can just minimize the screen sharing window, and then it'll be as if you got your way and there were no slides. So it'll work out perfectly. Oh, and since this is a professional thing, I'm representing Bootstrap, of course, I need to wear a professional hat. Okay. All right, so let's do it. My name is Manuel, and I'm a former public high school maths teacher and a public middle school math coach from the town of Dorchester, Massachusetts, which is South Boston. I'm also a former program manager for Microsoft, so my specialty is programming languages. And I am also a former doctoral student and education researcher, but now I'm coming at you as the founder and co-director of a research project called Bootstrap, originally run at Brown University. So I think I said all of these things. Oh, and I also talked about my daughter Maya, who has a matching hat. So that's perfect. We can just skip the slide right off the bat. So I'm going to talk to you a little about sort of how we think about data science at Bootstrap. My goal is not to have this be some sort of like commercial for Bootstrap. Besides, we give it all away for free anyway, so I couldn't sell it if I wanted to. Instead, I wanted to really focus on the way that we think about data science education. And I wanted to give you a little bit of context. Have any of you ever heard of Bootstrap before? Do people know about stuff? Oh, wow. Okay, so almost half of you have heard of it. This is awesome. Well, for those who don't know, we've been around a long time. And 15 years ago, we made a fairly controversial bet, which was that computer science, maybe it's not the only way to teach it, to have separate classes called computer science classes. And in fact, maybe it's not even the best way, right? Like maybe computer science should be integrated into other subjects. And so we sort of zigged when the rest of the industry zagged. And back in 2007, that was considered a really wacky view. And at the time, everybody was talking about sort of CS for all and computer science and all of that. Fast forward now, 15 years later, we're really lucky. Our experiment broke out of the lab. So Bootstrap is one of the most used in-school curricula nationwide. We're very happy with that scale. We're in 43 states. If y'all know anybody in West Virginia, please hook me up with their phone number so I can find out what's missing. We're happy to be big, but what we're really proud about is our diversity. So 43% of our students are girls and young women. 46% of them identify as Black and Latino. And the reason that we're able to do this is that from the beginning, our goal was never to create computer science classes, because all of these Bootstrap students are learning Bootstrap taught by non-CS teachers with no computing background in non-CS classes. So our bread and butter is, bring us your math teachers, bring us your science teachers, and we're going to work with them and we become experts at helping them understand how computing can be helpful, and also teaching computing and selecting computing concepts in such a way that they are appropriate for the host subject. We're not trying to like Trojan horse anything. We're just cherry picking the stuff that's good for other subjects. So fast forward to today, well, instead of CS for all, the new rallying cry is data science for everyone. And we're all sort of, asking the same questions, like maybe there should be data science classes and data science teachers, and gee golly, what should they teach? What is data science? So it's sort of a repeat of the same playbook. And unsurprisingly, we're going to stick with our formula, which is we think that maybe adding specialized data science classes isn't necessarily the only way to teach data science. Maybe it could be integrated into other subjects. So what is data science? I think the loudest voices in the nation in the last year or two have sort of been screaming that data science is a recipe with just 2 ingredients. And I actually love the recipe analogy. That's something that I think of when I think of writing curriculum, right? So think about a cupcake recipe. So Alicia here, her recipe might involve cream cheese frosting. And Beth's recipe might involve, I don't know, like coconut sprinkles on top or something. So there's room for variation, but I think it's reasonable to say that if you leave the frosting out altogether, well, what you have might still be delicious, but it ain't a cupcake anymore, right? Like it's basically a. So there's this notion that any good data science cupcake should have various ingredients and there's room for different providers and different contexts to mix and match those ingredients. but we don't want to leave anything out. And so the loudest voices in the room are saying, well, basically, you've got your math and your computing. Like, that's what data science is. So take some math, take some computing, boom, and you're basically done. And look, I agree that those two are certainly parts of the recipe. But I will say that, like, you know, the view that just math and coding are all it takes is dangerously flawed. So look, even if you thought it was just those two ingredients, mixing isn't as easy as like taking physics, thank you, R.A. Fisher, and then adding a dash of like Python and like, boom, now we have data science. And I just want to prove that to you with like a really silly example. Suppose you had an amazing statistics class, like AP stats. And then the last week of school, somebody was like, hey, we're going to do some Python all of a sudden. Is this a data science class? Like, absolutely not, right? And the inverse is equally silly. You've got like, you know, a great computer science class. Kids are learning all sorts of programming. They're building games. They're doing this. They're doing apps and all this stuff. And then like the last 2 weeks of school, somebody's like, hey, we're going to do some statistics. Also not a data science class. And I think it's, you know, while this is silly, I think it's unfortunate that there are actually some curricula out there that are already coming out that basically look like this. It's just sort of, you know, take one ingredient and then bolt on the other, just a little dash, a little smidgen. Math and computing aren't the only ingredients, but even if you think they are, they don't mix that easily. Mixing these two, and like mixing math and computing is what Bootstrap has been doing for 15 years. So I can speak with some authority about this. So to figure out where they actually line up, you have to jump up a level and think about bridge concepts. So where are the concepts to build these bridges? Well, I'll give you 3 examples. So one of them is problem decomposition. So how do you break down a complex problem, solve it in little pieces, and then put the pieces back together with confidence that like you've still solved the original problem? Another one is reliability. So how do you know that you can trust an answer that was generated from like a 6 million row data set, which no one could possibly have computed by hand? How can you be reliable? And then finally, there's reproducibility. So how do we ensure that just because I got this answer from this data on my computer, that's also the answer you're going to get on your iPad or your phone? So these are 3 concepts that would help you mix these 2 ingredients. And just teaching like a little stats and a little coding doesn't even come close to this. So it's more than just shoving these 2 ingredients together haphazardly. But I'm here to tell you that it actually gets worse, because even combining these 2 ingredients really well is necessary but not sufficient. There are 2 other ingredients that are constantly left out of the recipe. And I want to call this sort of like when data science goes bad, just to give you some examples. So, you know, here are some actual headlines. We are using massive data sets to train machine learning algorithms to generate predictive results. So for example, here are some headlines of like, it turns out there was a company that wrote an algorithm and trained it on historical data to determine whether or not someone gets released from parole. And the algorithm seemed to let white people, you know, get parole a whole lot more than everybody else. And it turned out that the algorithm was trained on historical data. And I know this is going to come as a complete shock to all of you, but America historically has some issues when it comes to race. And so the fact that we used this biased data set to train an algorithm means we accidentally created a biased algorithm. Nobody set out to do anything wrong, but because they were just thinking in terms of math and coding, they accidentally encoded something pretty bad. Here's another example. Political consultants from both sides are using massive data troves to redistrict around like party lines. And this is not your grandpa's gerrymandering. This is like super gerrymandering to a ridiculous extent. So that in order for any from any party just to win their damn primary, they have to run extreme to the left or extreme to the right. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that this weaponized data science is leading to some of the political divides that are threatening our country right now. And it's not just in the US, right? So we've all heard of Cambridge Analytica. Over in Britain, people used weaponized social media posts and massive data science to convince the United Kingdom to leave the European Union. Anybody here know what was the most searched Google query the day after they voted for Brexit? The
What is
most,
Brexit?
say it again, Jared.
What is Brexit?
Ding, ding, ding. What is Brexit? So they actually voted to leave the European Union, to fracture the Western Bloc without knowing what the heck it was. So weaponized social media has actually caused like legitimate harm. So we need to make sure that we're not just teaching K-12 data science, we're teaching responsible data science. And so what are the two ingredients that are missing for responsible data science? So the first is something that we call civic responsibility. So here's what I mean by that. A math class will teach kids that you need to have a good random sample, right? Random sampling, yeah. But a data science class needs to talk about the dangers of taking a random sample from a society that may have its own biases and how we address them. If you just think of it in math, you're not going to come up with it. A math and computing class will talk about how we can aggregate human behavior to sort of predict who's going to commit the next murder. But a data science class needs to address the question of, should this data be aggregated and should we be predicting this kind of thing in the first place? Like, is that ethical at all? So we all understand that if you teach medicine without like civic responsibility, you get the Tuskegee experiments. And teaching data science without civic responsibility gets you racially biased algorithms and weaponized social media. And that's just the story. The fourth and final ingredient that we think matters is domain knowledge. So I'm a teacher. I want to teach my kids about scatter plots and linear regression here. And any scatter plot will do. How about a scatter plot comparing the finest vineyards in Tuscany? Which of my kids feels included by that data set? Which of my kid gives a crap? Which of my kids feels excluded or is just not interested at all? Right? The choice of domain knowledge actually really matters. And this is true in professional context. If you don't know anything about baseball, the Diamondbacks are not going to hire you to do statistics for their team. Even if you're a great programmer, a great statistician, domain knowledge is an inextricably linked component of what data science is. So data science teachers need to be ready to talk about all kinds of subjects. So what does it look like when you're cooking with all the ingredients? Well, at Bootstrap, we've got teachers all over the country using these different ingredients in different ways. So there are social studies teachers in New York City who have their students explore stop and frisk data. You teaching social science in a revolutionary way using data science. There are physics teachers in Arizona right now that are doing what physics teachers did. They have their kids roll a bowling ball down a ramp and gather experimental data. But then they graph that data and they look for patterns in the data. And the students try to come up with the formula that models what they see in the plot before they even open the physics book to learn the real algorithm. We've got students in California analyzing environmental data. Students can track free throws in phys ed class or snacking habits in health class. So if you're just thinking of this as math plus coding, think of all the stuff you miss. Disrespecting the domain expertise of social science and humanities folks is like standard operating procedure for the STEM world. And we need to not make that mistake. We need to build bridges and invite our partner teachers and our friends to come and join us. So the worst thing that could, you all look pretty young. I don't think any of you were around for new math. Am I the only old guy here? All right, well, if you don't know what it is, look it up. We cannot afford to let data science be called new math 2.0, right? Like if that happens, it's game over. And so an interdisciplinary challenge, because that's what data science is, requires an interdisciplinary approach. Civic responsibility and domain investment have to be part of this recipe. We can't let the cake be baked entirely by just math and coding. We want to choose our tools wisely. Yes, I know some of us love R, some of us love Python. I love Pirate, but we shouldn't choose the tools just because they're tools we love. They need to be tools that are appropriate for the computational demands of the task and the cognitive abilities of the kids. And that might mean choosing tools that we're not used to, but teachers, we fly by the seat of our pants all the time. We can do this. And we need better, higher quality data sets, not just more data sets. So Dan and I, we've been working real hard actually on an exciting project to lay out what does it mean to have a fantastic data set for educational context. It's not just like grab a random spreadsheet off Kaggle. And finally, like we really believe, and this is just us, like it's got to be free. So if you are curious, you're welcome to grab all of our stuff. It's at bootstrapworld.org. Happy to answer any questions if you have them. But for us, that's what we think data science needs to be, and that's what we think it's going.
I have a question. I know it's notoriously difficult to assess when you have an interdisciplinary subject. Have you made any headway in how teachers can assess student work in data science?
That's a really good question. So we've actually created, the goal is simple pre and post assessments. And that's not because we don't love portfolio evaluation and mastery-based evaluation. We do, but we also need some of the quick and dirty tools to enable like teachers and standards writers to know what's going on. So we have a series of pre and post tests that actually do not require any programming at all. And I'm happy to share them with you if you're curious. They look at students' ability to look at a table of unstructured data and say, what are the problems with this table? Right? Why is it a problem that the height column, it's this, these rows are all in inches, but these rows are in centimeters? Why am I this row has an extreme value, right? Is anyone 0.1 inches tall? What might that mean? We're adding instruments to deal with data visualization. So here is a relationship in the data. Circle which kind of visualization is most appropriate. Is it a pie chart? Is it a scatter plot? Bar chart? So we have this assessment. This year we're piloting it. In fact, we're actually getting some data from Arizona teachers. Thank you, Arizona. And our goal is to do reliability and validity testing, right? Because we want these things to be robust. But we're in the process and we're getting there.
Other comments or questions or discussions for Emmanuel or for the group?
Is the curriculum really K through 12?
So we've got, so on our website, we have one public facing curriculum, Bootstrap Data Science, it's called. And in fact, here, I will send y'all, since y'all are awesome, a standby. I'm going to send you a top secret, not yet public page. Please don't tweet or share this, because the link, when it goes final, the link will die. Which organizes all of the lessons into a small, medium, I'm sorry, it's the era of Starbucks, a venti, grande, and tall sized setup. So if it's a complete year-long data science class, right? So this typically shows up only in high school. So we have a high school curriculum. We also, if you're doing integration, so this is often middle and high school. We've got our material, you can cherry pick as little as 4 weeks worth up to a full semester worth of material, depending on the learning goals of your subject. And we also have just a minimal thing for let's say seventh grade teachers, or mainstream teachers who just want a little smidgen of data science. They don't want to make the whole cupcake. They just want one of those little mini cakes. So we have a 1 to 4 week implementation guide as well. What isn't public on our website is the work we've been doing in elementary school. So we've received grant funding over the last few years to work with the KIPP Charter School Network to rewrite their grade 5 social studies curriculum to be data science based. And so what that looks like is this. 5th graders at KIPP spend about a month studying pre-colonial America. So this is the thing they already do. And the teachers, they're social studies teachers, they don't have extra time where kids are just twiddling their thumbs. So they said, all right, you have 1 month to teach the exact same concept. What can you do for us? And so we looked at it and said, well, we can look at a spreadsheet of archaeological finds from, let's say, Plymouth Plantation. We know how many, cow bones, how many cow skulls, sheep's skulls, were found, what kind of pottery, whether it was pewter or clay. So let's look at the spreadsheet. And we just ask the kids without reading at all, what was life like? All you have is the data. And so they have to infer from primary sources. And so sometimes they're like, well, it's really hard, counting all these different sheep skulls versus cow skulls is hard and boring and it sucks. Okay, great. Here's the button to make a pie chart in Google Sheets. Okay, cool. Now kids are going to try different visualizations. And then some kids will say, well, there's way more cow skulls. So I think that there must have been a lot of cows. And other kids will say, well, no, that maybe they ate them all, and that's why there are no cows. And it's like, well, you don't eat the skull, right? So like kids are arguing back and forth about what the data supports. And so they only have a short time to do this. Then the teacher says, all right, well, you've got all your theories, and all your theories are defended by data, right? Because kids like to fight. They're like, I think it was this way, and if you look at the spreadsheet, here's why I'm right and you're wrong. And so they're invested in data as a primary source. And the teacher says, all right, well, let's look at what the book says. Let's look at the narrative in the book. And so there's this sort of, the book they had to read anyway is now like a reveal. And what's interesting is that, some of the kids, they don't agree with what's in the book. They're just like, look, the data I'm seeing doesn't match what's there. But instead of just being like, screw the book is wrong, their disagreement is rooted in data. And so the teacher can say, well, why do you think the book says this? And it can be, well, maybe they're not reading the data correctly, that's possible. But maybe there's other data that the textbook writers have that you don't as a student. And the student's like, well, I want to see that data. The teacher's like, well, okay, maybe at some point you'll be a historian. Because you know how actual history works? There is no textbook. You have primary source data and you try to infer what happened. So in my mind, it's not like we're doing anything fancy, like squeezing data science into history. We're making history class more like the history profession. And we're providing opportunities for kids to have disagreements that are grounded in data. So that is in use right now in elementary schools across the KIPP charter network in New York. We're in the process of reformatting that. Those of you who are familiar with KIPP, you know that they have like an extremely specific lesson format. So we're rewriting all of those using our traditional public format. We hope to have those ready for release next year.
Mayor, I appreciate you being here and sharing so much with us. I want to acknowledge that Michelle had a question in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But in the agenda, you have like 2 minutes. So if you can answer it in 2 minutes, go for it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, okay, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So we are not top down. We traditionally, like, teachers bring us to their district. However, I do have a great example. In California, there's Vista Unified. In New York City, in the state of New York, there's also New York City Public Schools, which uses Bootstrap at many schools across the district. And they use it in different subjects. So the demand from the superintendent was, all right, schools, you got to teach data science somehow, but you get to decide where it goes. And so instead of forcing it into math teachers' classrooms across the state or across the city, schools get to choose. Maybe in school A, it's the physics teacher who wants in. In school B, it's history. In school C, it is the math teacher. And so it gave them a chance to build out a successful implementation without being heavy-handed. And I think it helped that district avoid some of the things we've heard elsewhere about sort of the forced march to kill math with data science. Anyway, I'll shut up, but I'll be happy to be typed more in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, that was great. I thought that was very exciting. Very, very cool. Thank you all so much. Moving right along, next item on our spreadsheet agenda, which I'll post the spreadsheet again back in the chat. Up next is Bhavna to talk about the awesome NCWIT Awards.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Bhavna, and I am a computer science teacher at the Paradise Valley High School, and I teach a variety of classes there. So first thing first, who does not like awards and recognitions? Everybody likes to be appreciated. Everybody wants that validation, because as educators, as every person, like even as parents, we do so many things that just go like without a thank you or a gratitude. So there is one way to appreciate and show that validation to your students, especially the minority students who really don't shine with all those gentlemen, like who have been computing and who knows all about computer from a very long time. So NCWIT is one such platform, and that recognizes and encourages women, genderqueer students, as well as non-binary students, as well as educators or sponsors who can endorse them to encourage and push them into computing and build a career in computing. So that's what NCWIT is about. And I posted a document with a little bit of information. Dan, can I share my screen? Oh, I can. Yeah. All right. So this is just a simple document. All the information is there in their website. They have very well organized information. So just for your information, if you are not in touch with that, NCWIT is a nonprofit community, and they have their Aspirations in Computing, or AIC awards, which basically honors any high school, as I said, women, genderqueer or non-binary students. That is not just a number. That since 2007, they have acknowledged 20,000 students. I was one of them. I have every year there are at least 25 to 30 students from our school that apply for this award, and there are multitudes of, like, there are different levels of recognitions that they achieve based on their applications that they fill out. It's very simple. They have everything in there. Are you a teacher? Are you a mentor? Or anybody who knows these student groups of 9 through 12, all the information is there for you. You don't need to create an email, all the templates. If you want to blast it on your Insta, or you are the one with the Snap, go ahead, take their blurbs. They have everything in there. You can just share it with your students, share it to anybody who you know who qualifies. And do I really need to be taking a computer science class to apply? Not really. If they are in a computer science class or a program, awesome. If they are not, but they still have an interest towards computing, they want to explore it, this is one wonderful way of encouraging those students. So everything is linked in there. Apply for it. And as I said, there are various levels of recognitions that students can go for. One thing, though, they can apply for it if they are 13 years of age, and if they are not eligible, like not 18 years, they need a parental or a guardian approval for them to complete their application. So all the dates, the deadlines are here for your reference. If you are going to endorse a student, all you need to do is they will fill your information as an endorser. It will come through an email, and all you need to do is acknowledge that, yes, I endorse the student's application. And when they win, you will also get all the information that about their progress. And what do I get out of it? Well, of course, you are going to encourage and bring in students towards computing, towards computer technology. But on top of that, if you're an educator or a mentor, you can apply for, once you endorse at least one of the applicants, you become eligible to apply as an educator. And they have the link for that as well. So there you go. That's all of this is from NCWIT. And if you really want to push your students into applying for it, there are posters and templates and flyers that you can, beautiful posters of students. You can print them and you can share it with your students or any other platforms that you want to. Any questions? I know I threw in a lot of information there.
Does anyone else have like an NCWIT story? Like, I know Bob has had students get recognized. I've had students get recognized. I'm just curious if other folks have like been involved with it too. It's a really cool program. I see Abraham saying.
Oh, that's awesome, Abraham.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, like, it's not just about the award, it's about that validation that you receive. And okay, I have been doing something, and I do account for something. And if you folks are fine, I'm just gonna do a humble burp, you know. This is my trophy from this year. So this beautiful class trophy. What the influencers do like this, right? So yes, please do consider applying. And if you know of any educators or anybody who is involved with mentoring students, do share this information with them. I have seen the happiness that in the face of my students who really are not very great at programming, or they don't win those competitions. But when they get this awards or recognitions, they really feel, oh, okay, I can also do it. So any other questions that I can answer?
I was just going to say that probably even the process of putting the application together is valuable, right? Even if they don't win, right? Just kind of reflecting on what you've done and your accomplishments and learning to speak, you know, for yourself like that, I think can be really valuable.
I agree with you, Marie, because if you go into Arizona Department of Education's at their professional standards, a lot of professional standards do align with being able to communicate and leadership. So yes, by writing about yourself, and it's one way of practicing for a college application. So
well, that's great, y'all. If y'all have any questions, y'all can get in touch with Bhavna. I will put out there, NCWIT has sort of like regional affiliates of folks in each state who kind of help manage the program. For a long time, Arizona State University was the Arizona affiliate. But now the Arizona affiliate is us, CSTA-Arizona, which is super exciting. And last year, total honesty, transparency, we got a little overwhelmed trying to like organize the awards ceremony and the event. ASU used to put on a really great sort of banquet and guest speakers and things like that. And Bhavna was incredible and coordinated that with NCWIT and was able to do a virtual event for students. But this year, we're hoping to do a better job with that, to actually have an award ceremony in person somewhere. It's a lot more clear that we can do something in person and host an event somewhere. So if there are any folks on this call interested in helping with the logistics of that, hosting students, creating an event for them, celebrating our NCWIT awardees, it is truly a wonderful experience for students. And I'm realizing I can share a little video in the chat of when I took some students to NCWIT a while ago, and it would be great to try and host something as well. So if you know of any folks who want to host a room full of future STEMinists, it would be great to start thinking about that now.
and I will add my contact information as well. So if you have any questions, just email me and I will help out as much as I can.
Moving along in the, oh, Beth, what's up?
Yeah, I'm sorry. What time of year do those awards usually take place?
Typically like April or May, probably earlier than May to not be a part of like graduation. But like late April, early May, I'd say is typically when those take place. Bhavna, do you agree with that?
Yes, the application process is already open. So September 1st was their launch, and it is open until October 20th. And then, so all the dates are in there. And then the educator awards, all the information I have put in that small document. The award recognitions, the results usually come out in first or second week of February. So they will email you as and when the they first announce the national, and then they slowly send out the regional affiliate winners, and then you can go to their websites and then you can see all the winners, and their pictures are, and their tiny descriptions and their blurbs are all there. So yeah, Feb somewhere around the Feb you will know the winners. But the recognition ceremony is something that happens eventually in somewhere in April or May. Like the national recognitions for educator happened a couple of weeks back. I think it was the 25th of August. So yeah.
That's true. That was for the educators, though, just to clarify. The
It was just for the educators, yes.
The students one.
They first send the students recognitions and the winners, and then the educators come out a little later. So you have to wait.
I also realized, I'll add too, just to clarify, as the Arizona affiliate, we also have like some funds that we can apply for to support things like catering and contribute in that way as well. So there's ways that we can collaborate. The big thing that we don't have though is space. So that is just always like the thing to think about. Okay, next up on the agenda, Marie, tell us about this opportunity you have.
Sure. So I used to work at a research company in Northern California called SRI International. And I'm going to share my screen. They are looking for middle school computer science teachers to help with a research project that is developing standards-based, instructionally supportive, formative assessments, basically. So formative assessments means, you're trying to figure out like what I just taught, is it working? Instructionally supportive means they're trying to help you then understand what to do about what you see in terms of the formative assessment results. And then standards-based means that they're actually digging into the computer science standards and kind of unpacking them, building learning objectives, and then building formative assessments that assess those learning objectives. I happen to know about the project because I'm on the advisory board for it, funded by the National Science Foundation, and they're looking for middle school computer science teachers, and these are the requirements. It's not integrated because, as I asked about with the manual, it's very difficult to do integrated assessment. This is just computer science concepts. It's computer science standards. So we want people who are teaching, or they want people who are teaching computer science classes. It's focused on middle school. It can be My CS or CS Discoveries. It doesn't have to be those. Obviously, there's some compensation for it because you're attending some PD. You're taking some, what do I understand about computer science? And then you can implement, and this is what's nice, from anywhere from 5 to 20 of these classroom assessments. There's 5 or 15 minutes each. And these people know how to build assessments. I've actually had an opportunity to look at these, as an external advisor, and they're really good. It's like a master class on building assessments if you want that. So Shatabdi and Daisy are the two of my buddies, and they're the PIs on this NSF grant. And so this flyer, I'm going to stop sharing. This flyer is linked to in the agenda. So you can take a look at it and look at the flyer, and then just contact one of those, either Shatabdi or Daisy or both. And you don't have to mention my name or where you heard it or anything like that. And I guarantee it'll be great. I've been to some of their PDs. They're really good. They're hands-on. And as I said, if you even just want to learn about formative assessments, or if you want to contribute to, a research project that could have a larger impact nationally, then I encourage you to sign up. That was less than 10 minutes. Any questions? So there's somebody who's interested, and I would encourage you just to reach out to Shatabdi and Daisy, or Dr. Basu and Dr. Rutstein. And I had a question for Dan. Is it okay if I put it in the announcements, then the community announcements, so it goes out on the
you should put it in
list?
both places.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect, yeah.
Oh boy. Well, lots of great stuff happening throughout here. Let me just to we're coming up on the end of the hour, just to summarize a little bit. So we have our little spreadsheet with all of the different agenda items that we did. I forgot to point out, we also have a little sign in down here. So if you wanted to add your email address and things, you could. Specifically, one of the reasons that we do that is one of the ways that we imagine a goal of these calls is a place to start conversations. So even though there's not a whole lot of back and forth happening now, just because virtual formats make it difficult, if there is something that you heard that you connected with, you want to learn more, like Marie's opportunity, use the email addresses here and reach out to folks and sort of continue those connections. It also made, I'm just going to call out, Michelle, it made me so happy to see that last time you watched the recording and added your name here. That makes me feel very special, because I don't know if people watch these recordings, but it's so great that they do. So that's awesome. That's super great. And then the other thing we have are these community updates, and they are listed here. The idea here is that they're almost like flyers, add whatever things you would like to add here, that then we transcribe and put on our website and our social media. I'm not going to look over all of it because the whole idea is that you can sort of read through them yourselves, but you can see we got some K5 code.org workshops coming up, a bunch of ADE workshops happening. Actually, I'm going to break my own rule that I just talked about. Like, Alicia, do you want to come off and just like say a few things about any of these? Because there's so much like happening here.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. We're super excited. This Thursday is our first computer science PD offering of the year. So that one is going to be focused on K5 computer science standards integration. And you can see we're offering it a few times this fall. So for people that can't make that first one, there's a couple more opportunities, and then we will have more offerings in the spring as well. And then coming up starting next Thursday, we've got something for our middle school folks. So 6-8 computer science standards. And again, that will be a repeat professional development. So multiple opportunities to attend. And then below that there, I just included as well, as you may know, we've got some new ed tech standards that were adopted last year. So as part of that rollout, we are going through a PD series, diving a little bit deeper into those standards. We've already covered standard 1 and 2. So that session has passed, but that will be offered again in the spring as well. But even if you couldn't make that one, if you're interested in learning more, feel free to sign up for the other sessions. We'll be doing some review with that as well. So all of that is there with the links to register within the EMS system. And we're really looking forward. Sarah and I have been talking a lot about just different PD opportunities that we can offer. So even if there's something that you're looking for, feel free to contact us. It just really helps us kind of brainstorm and figure out what the field needs. So super excited.
Thanks for letting me put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Well, we are in the final moments of this call. How exciting, all the stuff that we got going on in Arizona. What a wonderful world. And we got new faces who have popped into this call as well. I forgot to highlight this too. So I'll do this real quick. The way that we now structure these calls, it is much more informal, a way to kind of sign up. So if you already know that there is something you would like to sign up for next time on October 4th, we have all open slots. Feel free to claim one if you would like, or throughout the month, if something comes up, you can add something here, have 10 minutes to kind of share with the group. And again, start that conversation that could potentially lead to something more. I think with that, I will stop recording, and then folks can stick around and continue to chat if they would like, but then otherwise, I think that will be the end of our time.